Where are we? No, we've got 5 minutes before we need to start.
Okay.
Yeah, it was amazing, that trip. Yeah, I should revisit that actually and show it to the club again, because it was a stunning trip. Really nice.
Phenomenal. Yeah. To share it with the BBC as well, which is pretty special.
Yeah, it was. They only have.
Well, shall we bring up the route map? Because we do have some climbs in there. It may well be more of a stage for the breakaway, you would think, after today, and certainly after.
I've looked at it. There is one big climb.
John Cross,
Is that just to say that an area well done. So you're looking at this. As I mean, that looks like a Franken, but you've got to seal up that one.
Roughly 21 kilometres.
Yeah, it was John Cross. Completely oblivious to the fact.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you took that cheetah shot, Bob, were you eye level? Because it looks like you took it from eye level.
I was, yeah. It was at a place called Shakudu.
Okay.
Just outside of Hudsprit, and it's like a big safari lodge in its own grounds, massive, absolutely massive. But they get orphaned animals from the Kruger,
right?
So they had a pair of tame cheetahs called Floppy and Hunter, who just had the run of the place. They go off hunting during, when they felt hungry, then they come back and sit and have breakfast with you. It was absolutely a place. It was amazing.
We've actually been there.
Have you, Christy?
Yeah. We spent the first few days of our honeymoon there. So that was 19 years ago. Oh. Yeah, and they had the cheetah there who used to wander around, and any animal that was, they used to keep them when they were small. Because a friend of mine went about 6 months before, and a cub had been brought in. By the time we'd gone, this cub was quite well grown and used to come out on walks with us.
Yeah, amazing, really amazing place.
It was brilliant. Really enjoyed that. It's different.
They could set. I mean, it was a setup, but that King Cheetah lived in a big compound, quite a big compound.
Right.
One of the brothers, I forget his name.
Yeah, but it was human friendly.
Just go into the compound, standing behind this, and he was a big chap, and he had a little pouch with little pieces of meat in it. Of course, as soon as he'd gone in there, the cheetah knows there's some meat on offer, so it starts coming out, and if you're quick, you spot it coming out of the trees and manage to grab a picture, and then he'd throw the meat and get it running up and down. It was amazing. He did the same thing with a leopard, which was also in a compound, I might add, which we weren't allowed into the compound with the leopard.
Right.
And then he had these two cheetahs.
Cheetah wasn't in a compound. Cheetah used to lie outside the meal where we ate our meals. Used to behave like a cat, like a domestic cat.
Wow.
Yeah, fantastic. Julia and Ian, how are you doing?
We're all right, thank you.
We're here.
Yes, we're here.
Yeah. Hello, Grandad.
You're still in the same place?
Yes, we are. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the stairs.
There's the stairs.
Less of the Grandad, it makes me feel old.
Oh, you are.
My first grandchild appeared day before yesterday. Oh, yesterday morning, crikey.
Oh.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Enjoy them while they're young and compliant. Next thing you know, they're off to university.
Well, I had that with my own two, didn't I? So
yeah. But now
idea of handing it back at the end of the day.
Yeah, Bob, what flavour baby is it? Pink or blue?
Oh, we can't say that.
I can. I just did.
It's a blue baby, Penny.
Oh, does it have a name yet?
Ethan.
Oh, very sweet.
Oh, very good.
I don't know. I think my boy's a bit of a Mission Impossible fan.
That's lovely. I mean, that the Mission Impossible thing's lost on me, but
Ethan Hunt is the main character in Mission Impossible.
okay,
You knew that though, Penny, didn't you?
absolutely not.
Yeah.
I can't tell a lie. Oh, not a clue.
Right. It's 1 minute past 8.
Okay.
Make a start as we're starting a bit later this evening. Well, thanks to David for coming along straight after work. It's good to see you again. We were just reminiscing about when David last came, and I was thinking it was very early in lockdown in 2020.
Yeah, it was, I think.
Mm,
Yeah,
probably was, yeah.
I think
a few years ago.
David was probably one of our very early speakers in that lockdown session with Steve Race, and I think Mark Sisson came along, didn't he, early on?
Right.
Yeah, a bit of a triumvirate there.
Yeah.
Anyway, if any of you don't know, that this guy is called David Gibbon. I've known him quite a while on Facebook, and then about 3 or 4 years ago,
Yeah.
I went with David to Hornstrander in the very far northwest of Iceland to photograph the foxes in the winter, which was, it was pretty spectacular, David, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It's an amazing location, isn't it?
Yeah, we had a great trip, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But tonight you're going to talk about another equally spectacular place. Is it Ellesmere Island? Have I got that right?
That's right, yeah.
Great. Right,
Yeah.
I'll hand over to you then, David, and tell us all about it.
Okay.
People could mute themselves. Well, if anybody's got a question, David, do you want them to just pipe up, or?
Yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Great. Or if you don't want to pipe up, just pop it on the chat and I'll monitor that, and then I'll pipe up on your behalf.
Right, okay.
Carry on, David.
Okay. So
Yeah.
thanks for inviting me to talk about my expedition to Ellesmere Island. Around 5 years ago, I watched a video by French photographer Vincent Monnier. He chartered an entire aircraft and flew across Ellesmere to capture some of its incredible Arctic wildlife. Vincent inspired me to research how to get to Ellesmere Island, a dream destination for any wildlife photographer. But it has an extreme climate, and it's not really for the average person. Temperatures regularly dip below -50 degrees, and visiting this island puts you at risk of frostbite, hypothermia, polar bear attacks, and more. Arctic wolves are the main target species on Ellesmere, as well as Arctic hares, Arctic fox, polar bears, ptarmigan, and muskox. For 3 years, I researched how to get to Ellesmere. I made contact with Inuit people in the far north of Canada, and eventually got everything in place to make an expedition to Ellesmere a reality. But I'd like to show you a clip of the Vincent Monnier video that actually inspired me to go there in the first place. So I'll just... Can everyone see that full screen?
Yep.
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay. For some reason, sorry, the sound's not working. I'll try again.
Well, we get the idea as he's tramping across.
Yeah.
Pretty bleak.
This is the pack of wolves that Vincent photographed, and where the BBC go quite often to film Arctic wolves. They went there for The Perfect Planet and film series as well. It's quite a brutal place, Ellesmere. Temperatures normally drop down below -50. But the beauty with Ellesmere is as all Arctic wildlife. Every owls are there. I'll stop that. Okay, so I'll
Can I just say I haven't got the normal sharing the screen, and I've got big big boxes, sort of grey rectangles on the screen. Is that, has anyone else, or is it just me?
Yeah,
I got that.
Yeah, I think it's the David. I think you might have the members or people who are participating. You might have that box over your window.
all right.
If you move it, across.
Well, you can close it, David, can't you? It's in the top right-hand corner, Julia, is it?
It's
Minimize
on the
it.
right, and we've also got something across the very top, which is where you need to hide the window. So there's two bars that we can see, one horizontal, one vertical.
Right. Right. I'm not actually sure how you get rid of that. Are you, Bob?
Well, if you look in the, you're going to have to come out of, because you're in Keynote now, aren't you?
Yeah, come out of that.
Come out of Keynote, stop your sharing, because
Yeah.
you won't be able to see anything when your Keynote's open. And then in the top right-hand corner now, there's View. Isn't there? Or the Participants box. Have you got the Participants box open?
Yeah.
So close the Participants box.
Okay. Yeah.
That will hopefully get rid of the
Right.
main black thing. I don't know what that is at the top.
The other one is I can't remember what it's. Oh, it's the view options, I think. Yeah, no, they're both still there.
Yeah, we can still see it, can't we? That's
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of Zoom, isn't it? The top one.
Yeah, and the right hand side one is the other participants. Can you not just grab it to the side of the screen, or if you make your
Yeah, that's it.
that's it.
Well,
Oh, it's gone down the bottom now, but make it a bit smaller. Oh, it's even, yeah,
we're weenie.
yeah.
What about the top one? What do you think? We can live with that if you
Yeah,
can't
we
move
can-
it.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't worry about that one, David.
All right then. Okay, so Ellesmere Island is the 10th largest island in the world. and probably the most difficult place to get to in the world. It is the closest landmass to the North Pole. As you can see from this map, how close it is to the North Pole. It is one of Earth's true last wildernesses, where very few photographers have ever been. The problem I had was that it would be an extremely expensive expedition to get to Ellesmere. So I looked at running it as a workshop. I knew Joshua Holgo, an Australian photographer who has his own company called Wild Nature Photo Travel. I contacted Josh with the idea. He loved it, and so we signed a contract to run the trip together. It was, in fact, the first ever commercially run wildlife photography tour to Ellesmere, where places were sold to clients. We sold a place to a guy called Chris from Germany, Roberto from Italy, Marco in Switzerland, and a renowned polar explorer called Conrad Dickinson from Northumberland. Since the trip that we ran in 2022, we have advertised a further trip for 2023, and we've actually sold out now. And the trip next year is that Josh will be leading the first trip, and I'm leading the second trip. So for the 2022 trip, only myself and Conrad Dickinson were from the UK. In this photograph, Conrad is pictured with Prince Harry during the Walking with the Wounded expedition. Conrad is a world-class polar explorer. He has completed over 70 expeditions in his lifetime. He is the only Briton to ever complete the Polar Grand Slam, where he walked unaided across Greenland, Antarctica, and to the North Pole. In 2013, Conrad was asked to lead Prince Harry and wounded soldiers to the South Pole. He led the British team to victory, which was featured in a TV series. Conrad was also in the SAS and an expert on Arctic warfare. Conrad's place on our trip to Ellesmere came about purely by chance. I had contacted him as I knew he is the president of the Northumbrian Wildlife Trust. We were chatting, I mentioned Ellesmere, and Conrad asked me if he could join the trip. It was a huge bonus having someone like Conrad with all of his polar experience. This is a shot of Conrad with Prince Harry during a visit to Conrad's native Northumberland. Conrad is now a personal friend of mine, and his experience and advice on this expedition was hugely invaluable. He helped advise on clothing, surviving in extreme cold, and even how to bring the feeling back to your hands and feet when it's -50 degrees. Conrad made the commitment to go with us, as he is now a passionate wildlife photographer. But during his days as a polar explorer, he never had a camera, so missed a lot of opportunities during his trips to the poles. This is a shot Conrad took many years ago when he was walking across Ellesmere Island to the North Pole. He took it with his phone, but his dream was to go back there and capture Arctic wolves with a digital camera. A huge amount of research and planning went into this Ellesmere expedition. One of the things we did was ensure every one of us had evacuation insurance. This company called Global Rescue specializes in that. If we become stuck in the middle of nowhere on Ellesmere, we would need to be able to call for help to get us out of there. One called the Global Rescue, and they would send in a Twin Otter aircraft to pick us all up. We hoped we would never have to call them, but having this insurance helped give us some peace of mind, as we would be traveling across one of, if not the most remote place on Earth. We also had to have our own medical kit. If one of us broke a leg or something similar, can you see me now?
We've gone back to the normal screen, David.
Yeah, you can see me now.
Yeah, you've stopped sharing, I think.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, if one of us broke a leg or something similar, it would take many days before we could access help. So I put together this kit, which comprised of this is some of the kit that we took. So this is tramadol that I bought from a company in London that specializes in working with expeditions. This is tramadol and this is flucloxacillin, which is a antibiotic. And that's some of the medical kit that we had on the trip. We also had 2 secret weapons recommended to me by Conrad. This is a small tin of Dermatone, which as you can see on the text there, it says it's a frostbite fighter, and it basically, you put it on if you get frostbite and it eases the pain. And also another thing that Conrad recommended was actually quite funny. It was a lady's Elizabeth Arden cream, which sounds a bit funny putting ladies cream on for a bunch of guys, but this helped us keep hands and fingers supple in the extreme cold. This is me at the start of the trip, where I flew from because I live in Durham. So that my nearest airport is Teesside Airport. So I flew from Teesside Airport to Heathrow. All my specialist clothing for extreme cold was in the rab bag that you can see in the image there. My polar boots, which I had Baffin polar boots, which were tested down to -100 degrees. They were in the Pelly case, and the camera gear that I was taking was all in the backpack. And I was obviously making sure that I took all the camera gear on board with me. I didn't want that to go into the aircraft. I wanted to keep that with me at all times. From Heathrow, I flew to Toronto with Air Canada. And then I changed in Ottawa. And then when we landed in Ottawa, we changed airlines to Canadian North. Canadian North is owned by Inuits, and it's an airline that specializes in flying the Arctic. Many of the Canadian North aircraft carry a polar bear logo, which was a stark reminder of where we were heading to. This map shows where Canadian North cover. So to reach Ellesmere, we flew from Ottawa to Iqaluit, which you can see on the map. From Iqaluit, we flew to Pond Inlet to Arctic Bay, then Arctic Bay to Resolute Bay, and finally we boarded a Twin Otter 9-seater aircraft from Resolute Bay to our final destination, Grise Fjord. Grise Fjord is Canada's most northern Inuit community, where just 130 Inuits live. Very few tourists ever go that far north. And Grise Fjord lies on the tip of Ellesmere Island. It is also the starting point for most North Pole expeditions. When we arrived in Iqaluit, this shows the temperature we experienced on arrival. It was -32, so quite nippy. Due to a flight delay with bad weather, we stayed over in Iqaluit. This was quite a busy Inuit town, lots of traffic, some shops, restaurants, and hotels. While also in Iqaluit, Conrad kindly introduced me to this lady, Mattie McNair. She picked us up in her 4x4 and we went to her home and had a chat in the cuppa. Mattie is a famous American polar explorer, now living in Iqaluit. She is one of the world's most renowned and experienced polar guides. In 1997, she led the first ever all-female expedition to the North Pole. In 2007, she appeared on the BBC's Top Gear as she drove a dog sled team with Richard Hammond to the North Pole. She has done many expeditions since, including crossing Ellesmere Island. Her daughter, who I also met, now runs Northwinds, a company that specializes in Arctic adventures. It was an incredible privilege to meet people like this, and I've got to give a huge thanks to Conrad for kindly introducing me to them. I'll just briefly come out of there again, because while I was in Iqaluit, I also purchased this artwork from a street seller. And it was actually done by an Inuit, which is pretty unique, really. And it shows an Inuit hunting a caribou from a canoe. I offered him $20 because in the color with Inuit you can barter, so and he accepted. So yeah, it was fantastic to buy that, which is a pretty unique souvenir.
David, can I just ask, what month of the year were you there?
It was in March time, yeah.
I think.
That was March this year, was it, David?
It was March this year, yeah. So in Iqaluit, we went back to the hotel, and Conrad worked with me to put together our food, which comprised of around 6,000 calories a day. We had snacks, chocolate, nuts, sweets, desserts, and boil in the bag meals. We laid it all out on the bed, and this food, what you can see here, is actually just my food, not any of the others. But it was enough to feed me for 14 days. It is so cold in Ellesmere that the body burns calories at a frightening rate just to keep the organs working. Although I ate 6,000 calories a day, by the end of the trip, I was half a stone lighter than when we started. Most of our expedition meals were by a US company called Gastronome. We just had to add boiling water. We would collect snow each morning and melt it on a stove on a kerosene heater we had. These meals were actually very high in calories, but were really tasty. This is actually one of my favorites that I had. This is just as we were arriving into Resolute Bay. We got all our we were just stepping off the plane and heading to the tiny terminal. This is actually, Resolute Bay is now deep in the Arctic Circle. So just to give you an idea of where we were. When we were staying in Resolute Bay, we decided to get all our polar gear on. As at this point, it was minus 27. So this is a shot of us all outside the accommodation at Resolute. And just shows you kind of the kind of environment that it has up there. And while we were on Resolute, we also saw two white Arctic fox, which were actually scavenging just outside the hotel. And so that was our first taste of Arctic wildlife. But the flight from Resolute Bay to Greasefjord is prone to delays, as we found out. The weather up there is extreme, and flying a twin otter aircraft, which is only 9-seater, will only take off when it is safe to do so. So we ended up spending 2 nights at Resolute Bay. The Montane outfit I was wearing in this image was filled with ethically sourced goose down. Montane were kind enough to loan me this for the expedition, and have since made me an ambassador for their polar range of clothing. I also wore merino wool base layers, Baffin polar boots, heat system gloves, Montane down mitts, and I'll just come out of this again. Can you see me now?
Yeah, fire away, David.
Yeah, we also took boxes of Hot Hands hand warmers, which this is actually a box that I didn't use because I took so many. But these we put in our gloves and on our feet just to give us a little bit of extra warmth when it was like minus 50 degrees. And they're a huge benefit in those kind of temperatures. On the morning we were leaving Resolute Bay, we got to the terminal early. This stuffed polar bear greeted us on arrival. We waited around for a while in the terminal. This is Conrad and Joshua, who I know John Betts knows well. And then we kind of waited for a while until we boarded the aircraft. This is when we got onto the Twin Otter, which is a tiny aircraft with skis on it rather than wheels. It only holds 9 people, and it's so small that you've got to put the luggage in front of you. It doesn't actually go inside the aircraft like a normal plane. It actually sits with us in the aircraft. So this, in this image here, that's me. Next to me is a nurse. Oops, sorry. Sorry, something gone wrong there. I'll just go back, sorry.
Sorry, David, take your time.
Okay. This is me, and that was a nurse next to me, and we also had a teacher. So basically the 9 seats were filled up with just our group. A nurse who was in the pink hat, who was going up to look after the Inuits in Greasefjord, and there was also a teacher who they were sending up to teach the kids in Greasefjord primary school. So this is a clip.
We can't see the picture, David. Are you sharing?
Yeah, can you see it?
No.
No.
Are you actually sharing? Just come out of it, David, and reshare. Yeah, all good now.
Great. Okay, so this is us on the Twin Otter aircraft. That's Josh behind me. That's me in the front with I just had a thin Montane down jacket on there. And next to me is a nurse, which they were sending up to look after Inuits in the Greasefjord community. There was also a teacher in front of me who they also was sending up to look after, to teach kids in the primary school in Greasefjord. So this is a short clip of a video of us on the aircraft just before it was about to take off. You can actually see the breath. It was so cold. It was like -27 at this point.
Okay, we're just about taking off from Resolute. We've got a teacher, we've got a nurse, we've got everybody in the back, so we're all happy.
It's having like a photo war.
Okay, so this is when we landed. This is the Greasefjord airport. This basically is the most furthest north that you can fly to before hitting the North Pole. So that's the terminal at Greasefjord. This is a short clip of when I got off the Twin Otter aircraft. Okay.
Panning round to the great pilots.
And once we'd picked up all our luggage, we headed over to the accommodation. And this guy, Terry, picked us all up in his 4x4. He's a true Inuit. So he was the first Inuit we really met. And he loaded all our luggage on the back of his 4x4 and took us all to our accommodation, where we would spend 2 nights. This is the little small shed hostel that we stayed in Greasefjord. As I say, it's a town of just 130 people. It's the most northern Inuit community in Canada, and is exceptionally remote, and is actually on the tip of Ellesmere Island. This shed accommodation was quite comfortable inside. Actually, it had showers. It also had running water, but on occasions the water went off. So, but really, you can't really expect anything else in this kind of environment. So this here was the first day of our expedition. We had 4 snowmobiles all pulling us, and our luggage, as we sat in the back of sledges, which Inuits called a kamitek. In in this shot, we stopped to photograph some of the amazing sea ice formed on Ellesmere. This is Conrad, who was capturing the image of the sea ice. This is a short clip of Conrad and I on the back of a Camitech as we were hurtling along at the beginning of our expedition. This is Nolan. He's one of the other Inuits, one of the 4 Inuits who we work with, and he was refilling one of the snowmobiles with fuel. And when we set out on the expedition, we took hundreds of liters of fuel, because obviously when you're out in the wilderness, there's nowhere to get fuel. So if we'd run out, we would basically be stranded in the middle of nowhere. So and the snowmobiles pretty quickly ran out of fuel on a regular basis because they were pulling so much weight. This is a shot of Josh, my poor guide, who he's just getting off his Camitech. That's the Camitech in the background there. Basically a sledge made out of wood that the Inuits build. And we had a lot of breaks during our trip to the first base camp, and even after an hour, this just shows how much ice formed on Josh's face. It was just so extremely cold. At this point, any skin exposed would result in frostbite. So every part of your face, skin had to be covered. We had to have sun ski goggles on. We wore a special mask called a Cold Avenger. If you Google that, Cold Avenger mask, that's a specialist mask just for extreme cold. And when we were hurtling along on the back of these snowmobiles with wind chill, we had a thermometer which dipped below -50. So we predicted that it was around -65 degrees when we're hurtling along on the snowmobiles. At this point, it's hard to describe how this feels on the human body, particularly the hands, feet, and face. It is truly brutal and bites into you, causing pain and numbness. All of us regularly had to run around on the spot or shake our arms violently just to bring the blood and feeling back to our hands, because the feeling in your hands just completely went. It was just so cold, even with 3 layers of gloves on and mitts. The cold was so brutal, it was still getting right into your hands. This is a short clip of Conrad and myself as we travelled across Ellesmere on our 12-hour ride to base camp.
Well, it's pretty bumpy, yeah? Sorry? It's pretty bumpy, yeah. All right. We've got to do this for about 12 hours and hopefully we'll reach our destination.
This is a shot of Terry, one of the Inuits who we were working with, and here he's climbed up on the top of some ice to scan the Ellesmere tundra for wildlife, particularly polar bears. But you can see how kind of vast and isolated and beautiful this location is, and completely untouched by humans. This is another shot of Terry. Here he's actually wearing an Inuit coat, which is actually polar bear skin. And he's kind of scanning the horizon for polar bears. After so long, we managed to find a small hut, and we decided to take a couple of hours shelter in this to make a coffee and try and get out of the extreme cold. So we took a kerosene heater in, and we all had coffee, and I filmed this on my mobile phone.
We will try again tomorrow. With Nolan in the corner there. There you go.
I just realised I forgot my phone at home. Everyone's got their phone out.
All right.
Hot water?
So typically, Terry, when you order something online that you want,
after a while, we came to a glacier, which was exceptionally steep, and it was so big that the Kamitex and snowmobiles just couldn't get up there with carrying all the gear. So we had to all get off and walk up to the top, which was quite nerve-wracking because we didn't have any polar bear protection, and there was potentially polar bears around at this point. After we got to the top, we all climbed back on the snowmobiles and the Kamitex, and continued on our way. This is a short clip showing us traveling across Ellesmere with a barrel full of fuel behind us. Hard to see from these images, but it was actually about minus 40, minus 45 at this point. They were pretty brutal, and that's without wind chill. After a while, one of the snowmobiles started playing up, which was a worrying time because we had 4 snowmobiles pulling all the gear. But unfortunately, one of them started having issues. This is one of the Inuits. It's a 21-year-old young lad called Silas. He was such a lovely guy. Not like 21-year-olds in the UK. He had so much respect for everyone, and laughing and joking all the time, and so nice and kind to everybody. Not like what you would experience in the UK on the whole, where 21-year-olds are a bit crazy these days. This is a shot of Silas putting oil into the snowmobile to see if it would work. And this is another shot of Silas. Here he's actually wearing mitts made out of polar bear skin, which unfortunately the Inuits still hunt animals up in the north, which we don't agree with, but it's their kind of way of life, and we kind of got to respect that. In this image, it shows that all the Inuits that we were working with were kind of working on the snowmobile that had packed up. They're all very skilled mechanics, which they have to be in Grease Fjord because there's nowhere to go to a garage, so they have to be multi-talented, multi-skilled. So here they spent quite a while trying to repair the snowmobile. The guy on the left is Norman, who is carrying the rifle. He's carrying that for polar bear protection. But unfortunately, after a few hours, it became apparent that the piston had gone and there was no way of repairing this snowmobile. So we continued on our way and eventually got to base camp at 1 o'clock in the morning. It was black, dark, brutally cold. All of our hands and feet were in absolutely excruciating pain. And even Conrad, who was an experienced polar explorer, was suffering at this point. But this is the base camp that we ended up at. It's basically a small wooden hut. There's nothing much to it, just other than the four walls. And that's Chris standing next to one of the Cametex, and Terry there is trying to set away the Honda diesel power generator. This is the power generator that we had. It's powered by diesel, and basically it provided all the electricity and power we needed. So we were able to charge I was able to charge my 1DX Mark II. There's the Canon R3, what Josh had. We were all able to recharge our batteries on a daily basis, thanks to this piece of kit. If anyone has watched photographer Martin Hilmer, and they may have seen his YouTube videos a few years ago where he went to Ellesmere. Did anyone see that?
Yeah, we did.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the base camp that Martin went to, he wrote on the wall, and this is actually where he wrote. Angus Bilger and Martin Hilmer. That's the dates. So he stayed at the same base camp that we went to. So we decided to write our names on the wall as well, so everybody does who goes here. So you've got Conrad on there, Chris, Roberto, and that's the dates we were there, 10th of March till the 27th of March. So this is Josh and Conrad and Roberto on the far right, the Italian guy. This is basically where we stayed during the expedition. As you can imagine, it's quite a small, cramped area, and for 5 guys to all sleep in here was pretty tough. What was really scary was that at the back of the hut was this, basically was a tea towel hanging up on the wall. And the Inuits told us that not long before we got there, a polar bear burst into the hut and was looking for food. Luckily, at that point, there was no people in there, but it definitely made us a little uneasy at night when we were asleep. The thought of a polar bear bursting in. This is the tent that the 4 Inuits slept in, and above it is a snow dog. This is a phenomenon when the sun's rays deflect through ice crystals in the air. It's quite a common occurrence in the Arctic, and definitely on Ellesmere. I saw it several times. These are the Inuit guys we work with. So from left to right is Terry, Nolan, Silas, and Norman on the far right. They were all really lovely guys and amazing to work with, and so hardy. We were absolutely blown away. I mean, when we had all the masks and face masks on and down jackets, and these guys were just at the front on snowmobiles with nothing on their faces. They're just so used to the extreme cold, but when you get close up to them, the faces are actually covered in scars from frostbite, and so but they live a really hard, tough life up there. This is 2 more images. This is one of the snowmobiles with a sun dog, and this is Terry and Norman, also with another sun dog behind them. But eventually we did actually head out and do a 2 kilometer hike and found Arctic hares. This was me before I set off, carrying my 1DX Mark II and 500mm f4 Mark II lens. I'd only been out a short time and already ice was forming over my eyes and face. This is Norman. He every time I went out, looking for wildlife, he would come with us, because they were really kind of looked after us and were really caring and kind. The Inuits, quite a surprise really. I didn't expect them to be like that, but such nice people, despite what they do, hunting wildlife, which I don't agree with, but it's their kind of way of life, so you've got to kind of live with that. And but actually, as people, they're so nice and friendly. So this was a rifle that Norman was carrying and he went with us in case any polar bears showed up. And eventually we discovered a small group of Arctic hares. This is a shot that I took early morning, and the air is so blue, it's actually, sorry, it's so cold, it's actually blue. Which is why this Arctic hare looks blue. But the early morning light also gave it some rim light, which was really nice. And this is actually a close-up crop of the hare. The fantastic characters, and I love the black tips on the hares. I mean, these hares just have never seen people, so they were all over us basically. Come within. They were actually walking around our feet. They weren't scared of us at all because they didn't know what we were. That they'd never seen humans before. This is actually a small clip of me and Roberto in the base camp hut just before I went out looking for Arctic hares. Getting ready to go and see hares. We hope. So the hares were absolutely stunning. The 4 hares that we worked with, and I was really lucky to capture this image. After a while, I sat for quite a few hours, and during the 4 days that we spent with hares, this was the only time that only once of 2 times actually that we saw them box. But I was really lucky to capture this image. There was only me and the German guy called Chris who managed to photograph them boxing. So this is me one morning testing out a satellite phone. Basically, there's no mobile signal on Ellesmere, so if you need to call for help, you're basically screwed unless you can reach someone outside. So we had to take a satellite phone, and here I'm just testing it's working okay. And this is what we would use if we had to call for outside help. This shows you that after just a few hours outside, what happened to my face, and on my nose there's actually frostbite, and ice had formed on my eyes and stuff as well. I'd also got frostbite on my finger, and this is actually where I was. This is actually my shutter finger, where I was basically taking the glove off sometimes to photograph the hares or whatever other wildlife, and because I was using it on the shutter, I got frostbite on there. And this is a short clip we filmed of an Arctic hare where it was actually searching for grass under the snow. You can actually hear the breathing there because it's so cold that it's actually hard to breathe. It's just, at this point it was about -50 degrees, even though it's hard to tell in the video. But one of the beauties of going with in March is even though it's Ellesmere is at its most brutal, as the temperatures are often well below -50 degrees, it's also one of the best times for light. And this is why me and Joshua Holgo decided to go in March. Other people who went April onwards. Martin Hilmer went later on, but we decided to go in March, which even though the temperatures are extreme at that time of year, and it's a lot more brutal, you get the stunning golden light. So this is one of the shots I got backlit, but the light at that time of the year is absolutely incredible. As you can see from these images, we got beautiful golden light thanks to going in March. This image I've actually entered into Nature Photographer of the Year this year, which was I took at sunset just as an Arctic head sat up and the sun was going down over Ellesmere. But what was this image? This is quite a funny image. I put my camera bag down, and because the Arctic hare have absolutely no fear at all of humans, it came running up and tried to eat my camera bag. So it was kind of trying to bite it from the side. I mean, can you imagine this happening in Scotland with mountain hare? Even mountain hare aren't this kind of approachable. So we were really lucky. As well as Arctic hares, we also photographed ptarmigan in beautiful golden light. This is one of my shots. And we spent some time with these, and these were also approachable. This is a shot of Conrad as he was walking across the vast Ellesmere wilderness looking for wildlife. In this image, it was so cold that Conrad threw boiling water in the air and it just instantly evaporated. It was like -40, -50 at this point. And that's Roberto, the Italian guy in front of him, taking a picture of it on his phone. While we were traveling across Ellesmere, I took my pelly case, and basically because the Cametex are so bumpy, you're going over every rock, and yeah, your camera gear just gets the life shook out of it. So I put all my camera gear in the pelly case, and this is some of my lenses that I took. That's me there with all my down gear on and my Cold Avenger mask. The Cold Avenger mask actually has a filter on the front, which is what you can see over my mouth, and it dehumidifies the air. Because it's so extreme cold that if you breathe the air in without that, your lungs burn. So this dehumidifies the air, and it kind of softens the air so it doesn't burn your lungs when you're breathing it in at -50. And because it was so cold, it was quite often easy to photograph the breath of Arctic animals. So this is a shot of an Arctic hare with its breath shown. We also had many encounters with Arctic fox, and this is the breath of an Arctic fox when it was extremely cold. But it was fantastic to see these white Arctic fox running around right in front of us. Just beautiful animals. How we doing there, Bob?
Doing all right, mate. You got a natural break we can take, or?
Yeah.
Well, say when you're ready, and we'll have a 10-minute break.
We'll take a break now.
Great. Okay, stop your sharing then. I can do that. Terrific.
Brilliant.
Looks like an amazing adventure, that, David. I mean,
It was incredible.
Right, has anybody got any questions for David before we have a quick break?
Yeah, hi Bob, it's Ben. Hi David. Just wondering, I'm guessing that time of year you had an opportunity to see the aurora as well.
Yeah, we did, but we didn't actually see it, surprisingly. Yeah, we didn't actually see the aurora. We expected to see it, but and we did take wide angle lenses, like f2.8 lenses, to photograph the aurora, but no, unfortunately we didn't see it during the expedition.
David, I ought to say I'm full of admiration. The amount of effort you put in there to for your art. Talk about suffering for your art. Amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. It was a once in a lifetime trip, and especially to go with Conrad, who'd had so much polar experience. To have him on the team was a privilege, really. And he taught us so much about how to survive in extreme cold.
Did the camera gear survive okay?
Yeah, that was good question, actually. Yeah, I had a 1DX Mark III, and Josh had a Canon R3, And there was a guy had a Nikon Z6, and another guy had a Canon R5, and all cameras performed fine. The R5, the guy with the R5, he actually strapped one of these hand warmers to the bottom of it, and that helped with it, so it worked fine. But yeah, the Star Performer, I mean, I had the 1DX Mark II, and the batteries were, I was going through a battery per hour. It was so cold that the batteries were literally lasting 1 hour then dying. But the Canon R3 was the Star Performer. Conrad and Josh had an R3, and it was lasting like 4 or 5 hours each battery. It just performed flawlessly. So if that's the camera to get, the Canon R3, if you're going to somewhere really cool.
Fantastic. Right, let's take a break then, David. We'll get started again at 9:05, yeah?
Yeah, that's fine.
Great, just short of 10 minutes.
Okay. Thanks.
Right, fire away, David. Once you get to the end, then we'll just pop back and well, you can go back a bit now if you want.
Okay.
Finish on the natural ending.
Okay. Back to the hares.
Yeah, go back to the beginning of the hares.
Okay. Yeah, so this is when they kind of hear something, they stand on the 2 feet, kind of like a meerkat. So that they stand up on two feet, looking to see if there's any predators around, and that's what this was doing here. But as you can see, the light around this hare was just glowing. This hare had actually found a little bit of grass which buried beneath the snow, which it was eating. But once the sunset starts going down, the golden light is just absolutely stunning, as you can see here. I mean, if you go in April time or after any time like that you don't get this light, you've got to go in March. But the downside of going in March is that it's exceptionally cold. So but me and Josh thought it was worth it. We thought it was worth the suffering of the extreme cold to get this golden light. So here I underexposed the shot to get the just to get the rim light, basically.
Just go back to that one, David. Yes, amazing. The light just on the bits of grass.
Yeah. Yeah, just on the grass and on the hair. So it was fantastic. The sun was actually going down behind the mountains at this point, so that's why it was just lighting up so much of the image.
Surprised you didn't pick that one for your entry.
Yeah, I probably should have entered it, really.
I think I prefer it to the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this one, it was hunkered down, because the kind of like mountain hares in Scotland, if anybody's gone up there to photograph them in the Cairngorms, they have similar kind of behavior, but Arctic hares. So they hunker down and they become more alert kind of towards dusk and dawn. But yeah, this was the image I entered into Nature Photographer. But yeah, it was a fantastic moment just as the sunset was going down on Ellesmere. But this is a shot I've got of as a save it eating me bag, but also I had a shot of it eating Joshua Holko's binoculars, but I haven't got that at the moment. But it was trying to eat his binoculars as well, which is just crazy. But these Arctic hares were literally coming around our feet, so they just showed no fear whatsoever. And these are we saw quite a lot of ptarmigan up there as well. this was quite amazing when we saw the boiling water just instantly evaporate, which you can only happens when it's extremely cold, as most of you probably have seen or know about. But yeah, it up there is a great opportunity to get the breath of Arctic animals like this with a. Josh has actually got a fantastic image of an Arctic hare, which he's probably going to enter into a competition, and he got it back with it, and the breath was just amazing. But I mean, you don't often see the breath of an Arctic fox, so it's quite unique to get it up there. This Arctic fox was just running across the tundra. It had actually been feeding on a musk ox carcass, and you can see some of the hair off the musk ox on its right front paw. The same here as well. You can see some of the hair, and that's actually got some of it on its front as well. Because musk ox are actually a target for Arctic wolves on Ellesmere. So what happens is the Arctic wolves will quite often bring them down, and then Arctic fox will go in for what's left and feed on the remains. So as well as wildlife, we also took landscape shots. So this is a shot I took of the sea ice, and that's actually the sea, what you can see in front, but it's so cold it's just frozen solid. So this was at sunset, and I used an aperture of f/22 to, I don't know if any of you know, but you can use an aperture of f/22, it creates a starburst. So I set the camera to f/22 to get the starburst coming over the sea ice, and the light on the sea ice was just phenomenal. What I should point out as well is that this is near the base camp where we were, and at the very back of the picture, on one of the mornings, it was about 6 o'clock in the morning, a pack of Arctic wolves actually appeared there, but unfortunately they were just too far away to get a good image of. But yeah, just an interesting point to make that they probably smelled us because they have an amazing sense of smell. So they walked right round and actually sat and actually lay on the sea ice behind here, and the Inuits actually came running in at about 6 in the morning to let us know that there was Arctic wolves around, because they were kind of scanning the environment all the time. So this is Norman, one of the Inuits, and he was actually showing us how to build an igloo the Inuit way. So he had a machete, and he was just cutting blocks of ice and creating an igloo. And he did it so fast, it was just incredible. He had the igloo built in like minutes, and he was telling us that this is what they used to do before they had canvas tents. I mean, now that they use double canvas tents when they go out, but in his generation, when he was younger, they just built igloos, which, I mean, it was a privilege just to watch an Inuit, just to stand there and watch an actual real Inuit build an igloo in front of us, which, I mean, not many people will ever witness. There was actually another group of photographers went after us up to Ellesmere, and they were lucky and they did see Arctic wolves, and this is a shot one of them got on the back of the camera. Unfortunately not our group, but yeah, as I say, another group did actually manage to see them. And at the end of the expedition, we were up there 14 days. We headed back to Grease Fjord, and this is a short video clip of us on the snowmobiles as we travelled across the Ellesmere tundra. See from here how barren and remote it is. There's no human life for hundreds of miles when you're out there. No help or happens. You've got to be so well prepared. That's the town of Greasefjord where we're heading back to. What's amazing about Greasefjord, which I didn't think before, actually has a co-op. It's slightly unlike our co-op, but this is a shot of me, and I actually went into the co-op in Greasefjord and I bought this fleece with that little which one of the Inuits had actually sewn onto the fleece. And you can see I'd lost quite a bit of weight in this shot to what I am now. And I've still got a bit of frostbite on my nose from the expedition. But everything in the Arctic is ridiculously expensive. Like, I bought a postcard, and it was £5 for one basic postcard. And this fleece was actually about £50 for a basic fleece. But fantastic souvenir, knowing that it was bought somewhere where in like Canada's most remote Inuit community. And we actually walked around the community as well, and spent a bit of time. We went into the health centre where Inuits are treated by the nurse. We saw the school where the Inuit kids go to. Another thing that I didn't mention is when we went on the expedition, we had a dog with us called Flash. And the dog was really cute, and you'll actually see it in a minute in one of the videos that I'm going to show. And the Inuits took the dog because it's a polar bear protection, because when we all asleep at night, the dog will actually bark if a polar bear approaches camp and give us an early warning sign. So when we got back from to the UK, me and Conrad were asked by the BBC to go on Look North, which is the local news programme in the Northeast. And we were actually asked to go on and talk about our expedition, and also judge images for a Children in Need calendar. Because they have, as well as the national Children in Need calendar, there's actually a local one as well in the Northeast. And they run a photography competition every month. And every month they have like celebrity judges, and we were lucky to be picked, as we're not celebrities, and we were asked to go on and be judges for this particular month. And we're actually going back on Look North in November to the official launch party. But this is the film which I'll show you now.
Now, on a hot day, Paul's got something to cool us down, haven't you, Paul?
Absolutely, yes. Time to reveal our latest winning weather picture. Our special guest judges for April are Conrad Dickinson from Northumberland and David Gibbon from County Durham, both award-winning wildlife photographers and both intrepid explorers. I caught up with them at Northumberland Wildlife Trust's Hawksley Nature Reserve. They're just back from their latest expedition to the Canadian Arctic.
This is actually me travelling in a bucket. It was about -50. I've got frostbite on my face.
Just got back from
That's the
Ellesmere
dog that we
Island,
took, Flash.
10th largest island in the world, probably the hardest place to get to in the world, and it's pretty extreme. You know, we're talking -50 on a sort of a daily basis. And for me, it was unfinished business. I'd been there 14 years ago, and followed by wolves day and night for 3 days. But I wasn't as much into photography then, so it was to try and nail these photographs.
In these extreme conditions, you obviously need the best equipment. How do you stay warm?
You need kind of a lot of layers to keep warm. So I had like merino wool base layers, and then I had a 100% wool jumper, and then I had a down jacket. The hands, the extremities is where you really feel the cold. So your face, your hands, your feet. Basically, I had these down gloves which Montaigne based in Asheton. Without these mitts, I'd have probably lost a finger.
Yeah, you're very much looking out for each other. It's called a buddy-buddy system, so you're constantly looking at the face to see if there's any white patches appearing, and then taking action so that you don't get frostbite.
What about the local people that you met on your trip?
Different culture, but they're incredibly hard. My memorable moment was when our sledge overturned and one of the Inuit flew 6 foot in the air, landed on some rocks, and he just gave himself a little shake and he was off.
I left you a selection of our viewers April weather pictures to have a look at. What did you make of them, Conrad?
It was maybe harder judging the photographs because there were so many good ones, but as hard as the expedition, if the truth be told.
There was a little bit of to and fro, wasn't there? The first runner-up is that we chose Brian Moffat, who took a fantastic image of Canada geese flying over Derwent Water. The image is absolutely fantastic. He's got the snow on the mountains, the depth of field as well. He's obviously used a nice aperture to get it all in focus. The scale as well, seeing the composition of the geese flying over such beautiful mountains is absolutely stunning.
The second runner-up was Murray McLaren. Great picture of Darlington, absolutely fantastic. He's got the juxtaposition of this wonderful blossom in the foreground and then totally in focus clock tower. It brings the two together, fantastic.
The overall winner that we've chosen, Paul, is by Andrew Miller, and it's a shot taken in Willington. What I really liked about this picture was the composition and also the swirling clouds in the sky. Really add to the overall composition, and it's just like a fantastic image, really stand out.
I mean, I particularly like the complementary colours of the bright blue sky and that vivid yellow oilseed rape. I mean, stunning, stunning.
Congratulations, Andrew. Big thanks to Conrad and David.
That's it.
Thanks very much, Dave.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thanks.
You are a celebrity up in the northeast by now. I would have
5 minutes of fame.
thought. Andy Warhol moment.
Yeah.
Well, I did have a question for you. What became of the snowmobile that packed up?
Yeah, what happened was on the way back, we actually got back to Grease Fjord, and then a couple of the Inuits actually went all the way back to repair it and bring it back to Grease Fjord.
Oh wow! So you just abandoned it until later.
Just abandoned it.
You haven't got the scrap thieves over there, have you, that we've got here in the UK. You couldn't leave something like that lying about around here.
No, probably get nicked, but no, it was fine, yeah, and
smashing.
Yeah, but I mean, what amazed us was that the amount of food you eat up there, and it's like the best diet ever, because you can just eat loads of food and still lose weight.
Great. So, has anybody got any other questions for David?
How did you navigate, David? Did you have GPS?
Yeah, the Inuits actually had a GPS system on the snowmobile, so basically they kind of used that. And what happened was the plan was to go up to a place called Eureka. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but it's in the far north of Ellesmere, and that's where the most approachable Arctic wolves live. But because we'd lost the snowmobile, and we were down to 3 snowmobiles, we took the executive decision to stay at the first base camp and kind of work with the Arctic hares there and other wildlife that we had nearby. But next year we're planning on going much further north. So we're actually going to go right up to Eureka. And what we've done is next year is actually, this year we had the whole group together, but next year we actually split it up into 2. So Josh has taken a few clients and I'm taking a few. So, because what we found was too many people scared the wildlife. So we're going to have much smaller groups next year. So hopefully that'll make a big difference when we go back up there.
A slightly indelicate thought, but if you were getting frostbite on your camera finger,
yeah,
how quick did you have to be to take a pee?
The toilet was the worst thing. We had to we actually had to go well, what happened was we had a mixture. Sometimes we went out on the sea ice, You know, I took that shot where I had the starburst.
Yeah.
Some of us went on there behind some ice to go to the loo, which wasn't fun, I can tell you.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah. Or we also actually persuaded the Inuits to take a portable toilet. So it was basically just a little potty, what we put a tent round. And we had that as well, which kind of eased the pain a little bit. But yeah, the toilet was the one thing I was dreading the most.
David, what was your most memorable moment?
Probably when one of the Inuits, when we hit a rock, and it, like what we said in the TV interview, and he flew 6 foot in the air, and the whole Comatech tipped over, and I actually nearly had an arm took off. I didn't mention this in the talk, but the whole Comatech tipped over, and it was actually mine that tipped over, and there was this huge rock, and it stopped just before my arm hit the rock. Otherwise, I could have had an arm took off.
So that's not something you put in. So that's not something you put in the promotional material then.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult trip for definite, and not one for everyone.
Awesome. Right. Thanks very much, David. I really appreciate you coming along tonight and telling us all about it.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Great. I failed to make a note of when our next meeting is, but I think it's Alison. I think Alison Mees is due to speak to us soon. I'll send you an email about it anyway. So on that note, thanks very much, David, and we'll say good night.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, David.
Thank you,
Thanks, Tom.
David.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, good to see you,
Good
David.
luck in Baffin.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.